so delightful to see you all today in my talk, Shifting Metabolism on Gluten-Free Diet. I'm Chen Ben Usher. I'm a board-certified nutritionist, and I'm working with individuals like you that are struggling to make sense in all their destruction, biological destruction that are under the umbrella of autoimmune and metabolism. I wrote a book, What If Gluten-Free is Not Enough, which is here. Through, please take the opportunity to register and claim a gift and get the raffle for yourself. One more little thing before we starting and getting into the presentation is that today between 1 to 1:30 Eastern time, I will have an opening meeting in a room chat, and you're more than welcome to come in and ask more questions beyond the topic, definitely related to nutrition and health. If I can be helpful in any way to light your way, light your journey, you're more than welcome to do so. So are you ready? I hope you are. Let me share the screen and bring the presentation, and I'm taking off. Here we are. So shifting metabolism on a gluten-free diet. So one of the interesting things that I'm observing, looking at the science and clinically, is that the number of Americans going gluten-free has been triple since 2009, despite the fact that the prevalence of celiac disease has remained flat. So the question here, what's going on? Why is that? What's happening? And at the same time, as I see, and as my colleague are looking at, we're dealing with much more autoimmune diseases. And right now we know about 50 million Americans that are struggling with some type of autoimmune, either they know and aware or not. And it is basically distributed over 80 to 100 different diseases that can be presented as diabetic, for example. Who would think that diabetic is autoimmune disease? Arthritis, celiac, we all know, of course, thyroid, of all of them, Graves, lupus, multiple sclerosis, and brain degeneration. And, just look at the numbers of people that are facing autoimmune disease affecting any tissue in the body is unbelievable. Not to say, with the fact of the COVID-19 and the fact that we got the vaccine, and I'm not getting into it at all, what we do predict that in the next coming years, we will see huge spike among individuals that were on borderline getting more and more autoimmune diseases. And this is something that we need to be aware, open our eyes, take the actions today, because if there is anything you can do today to prevent it, why not to do that? And when autoimmune disease is happening, basically behind the scene, even if we see that or feel it, or even if we don't, there is a tissue destruction, and the tissue destruction can be happening anywhere in the body, silently and aggressively. And that's one of the paradox on gluten-free diet, because many people are pulling off the gluten out of their diet, and they think they get better, but when they don't eat, but when they are eating still grains from the wheat family, but they don't get the same presentation, let's say running to the bathroom with a diarrhea or stomach ache or energy crash, they think this grain is safe for them. But they don't know that behind the scene, tissue destruction is still active. And that is basically what I try to bring it into our awareness, because it can affect any single tissue in the body. And you can see where it is. And of course, the million-dollar question here is why? Why more and more people are taking off gluten out of their diet, and still the numbers of autoimmune disease is triple. and getting higher. And what's the correlation, if there is a correlation, and what can we do in order to lower the numbers if possible? And when we are on a gluten-free diet, it takes effort. It's require education. It requires support. It's a lifelong effort. It's not something that you wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, I'm taking off gluten out of my diet." It requires maintenance. It requires knowledge. In a way, it's a little bit limited. If you go to a restaurant and you have less options, even though we have much more compared to any other times in the processed food industry. It's expensive, of course. And the other thing that I see is that about 23% of gluten-free consumers will report that they will incorporate gluten-free food into the diet once in a while. So it's not a complete. And if it's not a complete, obviously, and you get continuous tissue destruction, even though you don't feel it. And that's one of the things that I want to bring into your attention. The other thing is we are definitely dining more outside. Dining outside definitely had been triple while on COVID and the lockdown. And we are, in a way, losing huge control on our health, not sure in what spices or what mixes they're using to cook our food. And it can be, it can be the oil, it can be the spices, it can be the protein that they purchase for themselves. And we have to remember that as long as people are buying food, people will sell us food. And we need to remember, as good as people are trying to meet the gluten-free diet restrictions, every one of us is different. And we cannot assume that if in a restaurant they say gluten-free dish, it is completely clean and clear for us as an individuals. And that's where we are falling, because every time we are exposing to even a trace particle of gluten or any other peptides that activating immune response, we are activating a 6 months length of immunity that require nutrients, and healing is not happening. And this is really important to pay attention to. So the question here, or another question to ask, is there such a thing as a perfect diet that fits everyone? And of course, the answer is no, absolutely no. And if anyone is telling you differently, they're totally wrong. And yes, we have thousands of diets that have been developed through the years, and this is just some of them. And gluten-free, of course, is one of them. And we do see, the trends. For some, it will be better. For some, it will not work. For some, it will make it even worse. And that is the reason why I'm bringing it into your attention. It's not the trend of keto or the trend of protein or paleo or gluten-free or vegetarian. It's what's applied for you. And every program or any diet that you adopt for yourself need to serve your biological pathway, physiology, and support your existing on an optimum level. And this is very important message that I would like you to kind of like take from me today. So what are the commodities and micronutrients? And the only thing we want to do here is basically, I'm going back here. The only reason why we want to eat and have food is basically to rebuild, replenish, and restore. And that's another thing that is really important. Restore nutrients, macro and micronutrients in events of crisis or emergency. So let's say you go to a restaurant and you're gluten-free, perfectly fine, and then in a minute you are getting a meal with some paprika that have trace of rice, and you are responding to it. Do you need that access of nutrients to be available for you to support self-production of antibodies to protect you? And this is one of the things that people are missing. They're pulling off the grain, but they don't provide nutrients to supply the healing. And this is kind of like just partial of what we need on a daily basis in order for us to make ourselves who we are. We need about 18 different types of vitamins and almost 36 different types of minerals and trace minerals. Are we doing it? And the question here is, are we? And the answer is absolutely no. Americans are falling short on nutrients. And if there are any people here from outside of the US, I don't have here the statistics, but I'm sure that apply as well, if not equally, very close in percentage. So just kind of like give you a brief information here, we are short by 70% on vitamin D and vitamin E. And right now, they want to take the vitamin D out of the market. And the question here, why? Now, vitamin D and vitamin E are fat-soluble vitamins. And what if you are not digesting well fat-soluble vitamins? What do you do without it? These are the questions that are needed to be asked in any nutritional program to supply and correct the physiology behind the scene that we don't see. And pulling off the grain is not enough. We're short by 30% in calcium. And calcium is super important. Includes in the fatty acid oxidation. So if we don't have enough calcium in the system, we're definitely more oxidated. Definitely, we have higher infection, higher inflammation that can be destruct any single tissue in the body. It carries mitochondrial ATP molecule of energy, and it is helping us to regulate insulin. If we don't have enough calcium and we eat a bit more fruit and we don't have insulin, so we absolutely producing more inflammation? And the answer is yes, of course. 30% low on magnesium and vitamin A, which both of them are involved in 300 different enzymatic reactions. So if you're low on it, where do you get that? How you are compromise your health? And we are low by 50% in vitamin C. And not one and not two of my clients, when we measure their vitamin C levels, they have empty tank, zero vitamin C. And now you think, how can you operate? How can you basically act normal and stay balanced? And that can lead to fatigue, mood changes, cognitive declining, hormonal imbalances, just name it. And we need to have like almost 1 gram of vitamin C. But the quality of the supplement is also valid. How is it made of? What's the ingredients? Because if you take supplement that challenge your immune system because of the ingredients, in what way you serve yourself? And that's what I see clinically, that people are maintaining their autoimmune, back reaction wherever we are, and adding more and more into the cluster of diseases under the autoimmune title. And autoimmune diseases are cluster of more and one or more or even three sets of self breaking down in different areas of the body. And this is something that we need to build. Enrichment, fortification, and supplementation. 50% of Americans will not even achieve the recommended micronutrient intake, and they're very large. And when I'm getting into the table, I want people to eat more calories, proper calories, specific calories, efficient calories, But even if if you don't come to me or to any functional nutritionist, and you just try to make it yourself, and that's okay, of course, you're still low. And what does it mean if you are still low? So energy metabolism, which basically it's a set of vitamin, minerals, proteins, fats, and so forth, provide us energy. And if we don't have enough of it, we are absolutely compromised the sequence of biochemical reaction to the point we are producing more infection and more inflammation. So when we're talking about metabolism, we're talking about three main groups of food that are involved in food energy, which is the carbohydrates, protein, and fat. And carbohydrate is a big section that basically it's not just the grain. We have starchy vegetables, we have bean and legumes, and we have nuts and seeds that are all part of the carbohydrates chain of inflammation that needs to be turned into energy. And 95% of our body energy needs come from food and digest and absorb and convert to be energy unit. And if we don't do well of it, it's compromise our body temperature, our cardiac output, respiration, muscle function, storage, and metabolism. And that's what we are dealing with. And the concept or the formula that we want to keep in mind is yes, we need to eat, which is energy intake. We are functioning, so it's how we're spending it, but also do we storage energy as well for emergencies time. And that's one of the gaps that I see over again and again. People are eating, maybe they're kind of like balancing their spending energy, but they don't build up storage. And without storage, you are inviting yourself to much more crisis in the long run. And in the end of the day, prolonged insufficient energy intake will here it is. Energy intake results in malnutrients, and that's what we see. We see that more and more people outdoor there are malnutrients than ever before. Now, when we talk about the mitochondria and the production of the Krebs cycle, and I'm not going to get into that because it's too complicated and it's involved thousands of enzymatic processes. But generally speaking, the formula is we need food, we need oxygen, we need coenzyme, and we need cofactor to produce 1 unit of ATP molecule. And if we don't do it well, and the Krebs cycle don't have enough of the nutrients, we are producing also waste. Is very relevant for us right now is the lactase and the beta-hydroxybutyrate. And these two are very important because both of them, if they get into excessiveness, you are, like me, like anyone else, do not generate enough energy from the food that we're mainly carbs and sugar. And so we're developing further deficiencies. And when that happens, we're getting into a state of catabolic physiology where we are breaking self-proteins or amino acid to supply the energy need as a fuel. And now we're craving for sweets, and we are hungry, and we're restless, or we're apathic. We are not getting that sense. We don't feel hungry. We can skip meals for days. We just kind of like flat. And most of my clients, even if they will declare that they are eating gluten-free and healthy, this is the state that they start. Either they're too craving and restless, or they flat. And either way, it's a presentation of mitochondrial dysfunction. But when that happened, and that's the key, the gut lining will break down and will be destructed. And now we are inviting ourselves to array of challenges that leading to autoimmune disease. This is the time where you get leaky gut, food sensitivity, low energy, fatigue, inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, brain challenges, hormones, just name it. And this is the situation where people are pulling off a grain or one type of food, and they still need to keep up avoiding food because they did not fix or balance this mechanism behind the scene. And not one and not two of my clients comes in with eating only 2 or 3 type of food. That's it. That's what they can tolerate. And when that's happening, how can you provide the vitamins and the minerals on daily basis to function if you cannot do that? And this is how it looks like. If the intestinal is breakdown, now we're changing our microbiome. We have less food absorption. We have more nutrients deficiencies. We have more tissue damage. We're getting symptoms like bloating and diarrhea and weight loss and weight gain and fatigue, just name it, that leads into autoimmune disease. And again, the message here, if you pull off the food, great. But if you did not kill, then you did not do anything here. And this is what's happening in the intestinal. That's how the intestinal can look like: inflamed, destruct, breaks, leaks, and particles of food and gut microbiome can leak from the intestinal into the blood, creating a secondary and third line of immune response. And this is the reason when we see a person, they have a deposit in their joint and now they have RA, or they have constant pain and now we diagnose them with fibromyalgia, or they have thyroid issue. This is the presentation. This is the presentation. Not to say that we do see changes in the gut microbiome. And we see more and more people outdoor there facing H. pylori, Candida, Lyme, Klebsiella, Epstein-Barr virus, biofilm issue. It's not out of the blue. There is a trend, there is a way to inviting this crisis into our body. And it's not just taking medication and it's done. And it's not just taking and pulling off the gluten out of the diet. I know it's huge to do so. I'm living this life. I know how hard it is, but I know that it's not enough. And that's the message. You have to correct the mitochondrial function in order to heal. And then when you pull yourself out of the ditch, run as far as you can from it so you don't fall again. And yes, it requires time, and yes, it requires effort, and that for some of us, it's really expensive. I do recognize that. But it's important because I think that sitting on a chemotherapy chair, God forbidden, it's more expensive and painful and not fun anyway we're looking at that. So generally speaking, if I can summarize that, eating more glucose of any kind, even if it's gluten-free grain, and if we have challenges to break down glucose properly and efficiently, then we are inviting more inflammation, more oxidation, and therefore more negative pathways into the system. And in order for us to shut it down or to slow it down, more fats and more proteins will do the trick. And this is the reason why most people feel much more relief when they pull off gluten out of their diet and they are increasing by nature fats and proteins. This is why most people at the beginning of the process, when they start keto diet or paleo diet, they feel better. But do they heal what had been destructed? And I see that the answer is negative, no. And that is why we just kind of like yo-yo on our diet, the type of diet, and not buy that personally to our need. Interesting fact about the mitochondrial. So it is an energy unit of energy of for our body. It comes totally from our food, which is amazing, and it is 20% of our weight. And just to make sure that we all understand, we have about 100 to 250 trillions mitochondrial cells. And in respective, we have 30 to 100 million trillions human cells and 39 trillion bacteria. So just make sure that you understand, we have almost 3 times more mitochondrial cells. This is valid. This is important. We need to feed that with energy to make the existence of our life properly. The lifespan of unit of mitochondrial cell is in between 5 to 12 days, depends on the amount of food available for us. So we need to generate energy on a daily basis. So if you skip a meal or you skip 2 meals, that's valid to the ability of your body to generate energy on the cellular level, creating maintenance and balance in a long run. And I don't know of any car that can run without gasoline, not to say the wrong gasoline. So just keep in mind that these are a unit of energy that requires energy as well. We are producing in between 34 and 38 units of energy on each prep cycle. And most of my clients and what I see outdoor are making barely in between 25 to 28 to 30. And that's the goal. The goal for us is to push it into a place where you are generating more units per cycle and not wasting energy. Because in the end of the day, if you're eating and you're not generating energy properly, you just kind of like build up negative energy and not positive, and that by itself is a huge deficiency that build up more challenges. Interesting, red blood cells do not have mitochondrial cells, and they just carry the oxygen that we need to support this mechanism. And by the age of 60, naturally, the mitochondrial would decline, and the quality and the quantities goes down. But unfortunately, we see that more and more young people and kids are falling into this category as well. So it's not just age. Yes, age has and play a key factor as well. But at the same time, you have to remember that it's not just related to age. It's absolutely who we are and how we digest, break, and absorb our food. And warning signs of mitochondrial damage can be fatigue, surge for sugar, coffee, sleep disturbance, mood swings, anxiety, depression, loss of libido, stress, muscle stiffness, pain, fibromyalgia, slow recovery, dizziness, changes in body temperature, gray hair, wrinkles, just name it. It's like, yeah, is that happening to everyone out over there? Absolutely, yes. Because the food that we're eating, as I just showed you, is depleted. So we are in this state, and it can affect that. It can affect more infection in the system, like, for example, UTI infections, gut infection, skin infection. This is big deal. How many women are facing UTI? How many men outdoor are facing UTI? And that the ripple effect is going and growing. Liver dysfunction as well, neurodegenerative that can be presented in low cognitive, poor concentration, brain fog, memory, learning disabilities, and then look at that. Look where it can take us. It can take us over years, like after 20 or 30 years, struggling with nutrients deficiencies. That's the end result. That's the diseases that we are inviting. Endocrine disorders, thyroid, diabetic, low or high testosterone, that can be reflect in other sites of the body like migraine, weight changes, and so forth. And obviously, if we ask the question, why the mitochondria will change and damage, as we already understand, poor diet, poor digestion, elimination, and detoxification, higher toxicity, higher biotoxins, higher free radicals, more inflammation, less nutrients, membrane destruction, and apoptosis, which is dead of cell. And the more fast our mitochondrial cells are dying, the more fatigued we are. Because in the end of the day, we need that unit of energy to provide us and to be presented with energy. And the more we killing that process and not providing the need, the faster we are exhausting ourselves and definitely inviting more and more and more troubles. So another thing that I want to put in time here, I know I don't have a lot of time to go on, but toxicity, heavy metal, plastic, pesticide, glyphosate, Lyme, drugs like SSRI, cysteine, the painkiller, mold, all of them are producing more metabolic metabolic toxins like lactic acid, keto acid, sulfates. And the liver needs to take those elements and convert them from fat soluble toxin to water soluble in order to eliminate. But only this reaction requires 42 different nutrients daily. So if you don't have it, you ended up with higher toxicity that is recirculated and deposit in your cells. And now you do detox, cleanse, and all of this leak into the blood serum and you fall apart. This is something that we have to be aware of. More interesting, when we high in mercury, which can be measured, immediately our selenium goes down. And when selenium goes down, glutathione goes down, calcium goes down, we are in higher need to ATP molecule production, more free radical, more inflammation, more damage, and more thyroid issues. Does that make sense to anyone? Can we kind of like, can I scream louder and say, hey, if you go and buy a glass of wine, make sure the vines have not been sprayed with glyphosate. And if you eat an apple, make sure that you don't use any food that had been sprayed with that much of toxicity. And the other thing to say, which I thought is interesting, the average mercury content in whole egg is 0.312 grams. And this is micrograms per egg. How many eggs are you eating? How many people on keto and paleo having like 3, 4, 5 eggs a day? Is that your resource of mercury? So what most of us are doing on a gluten-free diet. So number one, we replace gluten with gluten-free food. Great. And we still eat around 197 pounds of grain a day, gluten-free. Congratulations. But really, we are looking for a healthy lifestyle. We're looking for healthy eating. And the question here, why America is still fat, sick, and tired, right? So the average American eats more than half of their diet from processed food. And almost 1,000 calories a day comes solely from highly processed food, even if it's gluten-free product. Keep an eye on that. The label gluten-free, non-GMO, and organic doesn't make it legit and healthy. Not to say, and gluten-free diet, we're eating way more chips. And one of them is like, and that's the question, some chips are very hot, but some are not. And the food industry is using what we call the power law of distribution. And the power law of distribution is very interesting trick that the food industry of whatever product it is some items that are different in their flavor. So let's say you buy a gluten-free quinoa barbecue bag of chips. So 5% of the bagged chips items will get different flavor, mostly stronger. So we are basically, by eating the whole bag, chasing after different and strong elements. So now the palate experience that we got from the kick in of that one strong flavor makes us addicted to this product, and we are consuming more of it. And yes, it's true to say that the gatekeepers are sleeping, and I'm bringing here it into your attention because yes, it is true to say that gluten-free quinoa, beans, chips, whatever you want to say, will make you definitely feel satisfied, but it's not giving you to be nutrients, and it's definitely far from being nourished. And if it's not nourishing, then you're ending up with less energy on the cellular level. So it's not that I'm saying don't eat it. I say be aware that you cannot overeat it, and just make sure that you are not overdoing some elements, knowing that it's on behalf of your nourishment nutrients need on daily basis. And again, we need 18 different type of vitamins and 36 different type of minerals. And if you don't provide it on daily basis, you are just making faster your mitochondrial cells to die. This is really important. And if we're talking about nutrition, the most important thing is we want to make sure that we're closing the nutritional gap. Because if we don't, then we are inviting us into trouble. And we want to remove foods that trigger our immune system. So that's something that you want to test. You want to make sure you know what's there. And even though I know to say that are testing themselves, they will keep the diet or will take some of the triggers out of their diet, but then immediately, when the holidays are coming, or they are in an event, or they're in a party, they will cheat. And when they are cheating, they are basically activating an immune response that lasts for another 6 months to come. And these 6 months to come, generating huge amount of energy, and we don't supply the need. And that is where we kind of like see the challenge, where people are trying to put their efforts to get better, but they don't do it completely, because it's easy to be, ending up eating a bag of chips rather than a huge salad, especially when you're low. That's not doubt about that. But the point here is that you want to remove foods that trigger your immune system, and you don't want to overheat foods, because overheated food will definitely create more inflammation. You definitely want to try to eat more organ meats like liver and heart that provide natural CoQ10, which is the key nutrients to generate energy on the mitochondrial level. And yes, you can have supplements with CoQ10, but you have to look at the content, where it's coming from, what's the ingredients that is made of. And the other question is, do you and can you break down fats properly? Most people don't, and that is in a way kind of like waste of supply and a lot of money that flushes into the toilet. And you want to make sure that you're improving that as well. And obviously you want to increase phytonutrients to lower oxidative damages, and eat more red meat and fish to supply more keratin, which is helping for the mitochondrial function. You want to avoid definitely high sugary foods and support your gut, the liver, the thyroid, definitely sleep, and lower your catecholamine metabolism, that actually changing our mood dramatically. And these are some of the supplements that you can absolutely use. I'm not going to go over it, but I want to say one more thing, because I know I have another 5 or 10 minutes, no more than that. I want to say that quality of gluten-free food is not just by looking at the labels. We need to know that the FDA was telling us that a gluten-free product or true gluten-free product have to have 20 parts per million, which is ppm, that needs to be written on the gluten on the product. And the other thing to say to be considered gluten-free. But most of our gluten-free will carry rice or sorghum or millet. And we need to remember that these particles can also create cross-reactivity and create immunity as well. And these days you can see almost on every product, including apples, that they are gluten-free. So with all the respect to the food industry, they want to sell, but we don't want to get full. And so we need to look at the label and we need to make sure that we are choosing the right food for ourselves. Now, to make a little bit more kind of like a complication, gluten-free is not the only protein in the wheat family. So gluten, yes, represents 95% of the proteins in the wheat. And that gluten is divided into glutenin and gliadin. And gliadin, specifically the alpha gliadin 33 mer, is the one peptide that can be measured and defined as gluten or as celiac disease person. But most of us are not falling into this category, and most of us can come negative on the alpha gliadin 33 mer. And the omega, gliadin gamma, and gliadin beta can be also positive, but it's not measured. The interesting fact here is that every peptide here can be presented in different body presentation. So for example, the omega will be presented on the skin, and the alpha is in the gut. So we need to remember that. So if you're coming negative on alpha, that doesn't mean that you don't have problem anywhere else in the body. And this is where we get this cluster of presentation, because in the end of the day, and I will run really fast here, I want to show you that the lifespan of antibody, and that's the key here to go, is 29 days or 30 days plus 4 months. So if you're eating in a restaurant one morning or one evening and you've been exposed to a trace part of gluten or rice or corn, and you are activating immune response and antibodies are produced, now you are in a set of 16 weeks of self-production and self-circulation of antibodies. And this is a big deal because no healing can happen in this time frame. And if you run low on nutrients, you just destruct more tissues. And if this is happening, immediately you cannot heal. And energy is depleted. And you feel definitely not your best. So putting things in perspective is, yes, we do have a lot of challenges being on a gluten-free diet, no doubt about that. And at the same time, it's not enough just to pull off the grain. We need to understand a little bit more what's going on and understand that there is also a phenomena that calls cross-reactivity antibody, where if you are coming positive on gluten, you may respond also to all of these ingredients, and most of our gluten-free product will have at least one of them, especially the gluten-free oat. There is no such a thing. Oat is having less percentage of gliadin, so some of us will respond to it and will hear it, and some of us will not. So we have to be very much aware of the complexity of this biological back reaction, and that is the reason why I said you need to be aware of it and just make sure that you find the right coach and nutritionist to help you understanding and clearing it for yourself. And of course, the book has it as well. So you can, what if gluten-free is not enough, talks about all those particles that can generate that. And you are more than welcome to apply to get a gift or purchase that. But at the same token, the point here is if you don't have enough nutrients and to supply energy on the mitochondrial level, there is no way for you to heal. And you are inviting more potential tissue destructions in other parts of the body, and that is autoimmune disease. So if I have to say anything, open your eyes, be aware, learn, practice, and invite better 2022 for yourself by making the dietary changes step by step, knowing that it takes time and effort, and it's worth it because it is so much more powerful to feel healthy, balanced, and vibrant. I will close here because I've been told up that I need to wrap up, and I'm sure there are some questions. So let me stop the presentation. Hey, everyone. So any questions? As far as I know, the answer is yes. This presentation is recorded and it will be on the site, I think for 1 week or 2 weeks. Yes, and you're more than welcome to listen to that. And you're more than welcome also to sign to my newsletter and my events because I do that as well. And, you know, I'm inviting people, you know, free of charge to educate themselves and learn because in the end of the day, being sick, it's not fun. It's really not fun. Any other questions? So how many of you are buying, you know, bean chips? Great question, Judy. So yeah, I'm definitely sensitive to gluten, big time, and I can share with you. Last week, I took a friend to Virginia for my son's wedding preparations, and on the airplane and on the airport, I bought wrap that looks amazing from the outside, like it was avocado and slice of cucumber and carrots. Everything looks perfect. And I said, "Oh my God, I buy it. I bought it." I went to the plane. I opened it, so excited, giving a bite on one of those wrap, and I see, oh my God, there was rice pepper there. Of course, I stopped eating it. But till today, it's 10 days. I'm eating like crazy, crazy.
Okay. So this is what they see.
Okay.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, what's going on?
I don't know.
How are you?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you're our first guest, I think.
Who's this?
Well, my name is Bruce Kratt. I'm the founder of the Cloud Bread Company. We're going to do a live cooking demonstration at 11 o'clock Eastern time to show folks how easy it is to cook and with gluten-free cloud bread.
I think I'm Chen Ben Asher and I'm in the middle of talking. No, I always.
Okay, but we should.
Oh boy, I don't know what's going on. Okay, Judy, I apologize. I don't know what happened. I'll keep my talking. So yes, Judy, for your question, I am gluten-free. I am celiac. I am responding. But for me specifically, it's not just the grain, gluten, and the peptide gliadin. For me, it's other elements that I cannot tolerate. And when I do eat that, my body will present in different way. And that's the journey going with me, because in the way that we are working is basically learning to identify what other ingredients can be presented in our body, and in what way. So for me, for example, rice is always itchiness and weight gain. I will gain weight like overnight, 9 pounds. It's all swollen, and it takes me 6 weeks to bring my weight back. But the itchiness, which is really significant, like you have to see my skin, is crazy. It's like it's really 10 to 20 days that I'm clearing through my skin those mycotoxins that need to be cleared out. And in the future, we are going to have a great talk about the mycotoxins in our food, and you are more than welcome to join this talk as well. It's going to be mind-blowing for many of us, because in the end of the day, when you are going outside and you eat food that is not good, then you get a youth responding. Okay, I need to close. That's what it is. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other questions, you are more than welcome to join our event and our meeting at 1 Pacific Eastern time. And if you have any personal question, you are more than welcome to ask and join at 1 o'clock today. I am more than and you can join also our booth as well. Go and check. I do give 3 books for free, so that's the gift that I'm giving. So if anyone is interested, sign up for the raffle. And I do give 1 nutritional analysis for free if you are providing your blood test. It's really powerful. It's a great journey. I think being healthy requires maintenance and definitely knowledge, especially in this crazy environment that is really confusing, but it's doable. So you're more than welcome to join. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy the holidays.